Welcome to the Amicable Divorce Network podcast. My name is Tracy Ann Moore Grant, and I'm the founder of the Amicable Divorce Network. Our podcast is here to educate those before, during, and after divorce, as well as divorce professionals, about all of the issues that impact a family law case. We are here to educate you about difficult topics, provide you new information, and also give solutions for how to navigate all of the issues in family law and still bring your family law case to an efficient conclusion. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Amicable Divorce Network podcast. I'm Tracy Ann Moore Grant, founder of the Amicable Divorce Network and your host for the Amicable Divorce Network podcast. I am joined today by one of our vetted Amicable Divorce Network professionals, Nicole Crites, and she is an attorney, Guardian Ad Litem, in both Georgia and Florida is where she holds her law licenses and is the managing partner of her law firm. And today, everybody will be so interested to talk about that we are going to talk about narcissists and how they can impact your divorce case and come up with some good tips to get you through that difficult situation if that applies to you. Thank you for joining me, Nicole.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being here, and I appreciate what you do with the ADN.
Oh, thank you so much. Is there anything you want people to know about you before we get started that I didn't highlight?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things you did mention the Guardian Ad Litem work, but I think it's really important to note that I put kids first. I know I represent their parents, but I do put kids first in litigation. And so one of the things that you'll often hear me say to my client, you won't hear me say to my client, say to my clients is, I'm not going to help you mess your kids over. I'm not going to help you mess their lives up. So that is something that's very important to me. And that's why I started focusing on this narcissistic divorce and how to guide these parents towards a better life for their children.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that is a fundamental ideal as well as the Amicable Divorce Network. And so you're an excellent fit. We always want to be approaching divorce by keeping the child in mind, what is best for the child, and try to focus the parties on that because divorce can get very complicated. It can get very emotional. And one of the huge issues that we are seeing people talk about is if one of the parents is a narcissist. Let's just jump in. How long have you been in family law?
So I began practicing family law as soon as I graduated law school. So it is the only area of law I've ever practiced in. That would be 8 years. So I started in Florida, just like in Georgia, you can do your last year in practice as well. So I'm including that.
Gotcha. So yeah, I've been doing this longer, 22 years, but no matter how long you've done family law, you have come across a narcissist as a professional, and you can tell, you know what is happening to you, so to speak. And it's currently like a big buzzword that people are using. So we definitely want to address it and let people know some really actionable tips if they think that they're dealing with this situation. Usually people will ask me, and I bet you get the same conversation, do you have any experience at all dealing with a narcissist? And I'm usually like, if you've been in family law for 5.6 seconds, you've dealt with a narcissist. Would you find that to be the case?
Oh, absolutely. Unfortunately, it is one of those causes of divorce that when they say irreconcilable differences, the difference is that one spouse just got tired of being treated a certain way.
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with the other spouse and you're looking at these patterns of behaviors, you realize it's a very narcissistic, abusive pattern of behavior. They're often shielded financially, so they don't know what's going on with the finances in the home. And these people are very hesitant to leave these marriages because the narcissist does a really good job of putting on a face in front of other people. So they have a hard time coming up with witnesses because this person will not act out in front of other people, sometimes even in front of their own family. So their own families don't believe them when they say things like, no, you don't understand what she is like behind closed doors. You don't understand what he's like when you leave. And it's very frustrating for them, and it's very difficult for them to leave.
So one thing I have found in these cases, I don't know if you've seen this, let me know, is that the spouse may have been dealing with this for a long period of time and they're trucking along and they definitely are like beaten down and not having the best marriage ever, of course. But it's when the children get to be a little bit older and they start to be saying, like, this is not normal behavior for a parent and they stand up to that parent, that is actually a catalyst event for a divorce. Have you seen that happen?
Absolutely, absolutely. And unfortunately, the research tells us that divorce when a child is between the ages of 7 and 11 can be a traumatic event because they're
Yeah.
developing their sense of self during those times. So what you're doing is essentially fracturing their sense of self. So they require a lot of therapy, but unfortunately, that's also a key time when these kids start pushing back because their sense of justice is really strongly developed at that point. And they'll
Mhm.
say things like, "Hey, I don't think you're supposed to do that," or wait, that's a lie. That's not what happened.
Yeah.
And they start to question things. And when the parent realizes this is when they act and this is when they go and seek that divorce. And unfortunately, they're doing it during that kind of sensitive time in the kid's life. The reality is they got to get out of the marriage sooner rather than later.
Yeah. It's like when the kids start to say, this isn't good, that's a wake up call for the non dominant parent, so to speak, to be like, gosh, I didn't think it was that bad, but if my child is saying this, then I need to take some action. So
Absolutely.
if somebody is in a divorce with, and I guess I'll clarify here, we don't know that everybody is a narcissist that people say is a narcissist. And from a legal perspective, I would say it doesn't matter because our training is you treat a narcissist the same way you would any other jerk. So the diagnosis is irrelevant. The tools are the same. And so let's explain to anybody listening the difference between just you're just having a divorce and divorcing a narcissist.
Yeah, so one of the things that I caution clients about if they are divorcing somebody who's narcissistic is one, be conservative on your funds. We don't need to sit here and pick apart every single lie they tell. It just doesn't matter. It's not
It's
going to move the
pointless.
needle. Huh? One more time.
It's pointless. It's so time consuming. It's all
Yeah.
you do. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can charge you 15 grand in attorney's fees going back and forth trying to figure out whether he picked the kids up on school that day or he checked the mail that day or she was actually at this place where she said she was or if she's having an affair when she swears she's not and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, these are divorces that are best resolved outside of court. And the reason for that is because the litigation can be so time consuming. If you're going to
Yeah.
sit here and unpack every single lie that is told, that is time consuming. And that's a lot of money down the drain when the reality is it's not going to move the needle one way or the other.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think it's good for the client to take a step back and separate really this sort of gaslighting, narcissistic behavior from the divorce a little bit and to heal with that separately and learn how to deal with that type of behavior and how you're going to co parent with somebody who is a jerk and isn't going to change and understand that a lot of that isn't going to get them emotional justice, so to speak, in the court system. And so having a professional like Nicole that really understands what are the key factors to pull out of this mess of spaghetti that is dealing with a narcissist is really important. And it's what we really focus on at ADN is how do we get you to the finish line as best as possible, as cheap as possible, as well as possible. So we're so glad to have you as a member. So you're very passionate about helping children, as am I. How can having a narcissistic parent impact a child?
So, something that a narcissist will do very often is they will hurt the child to hurt you because in their head, you are the cause of the divorce. And so anything that happens to the child is your fault. And they feel
Mhm.
very justified in these behaviors and these actions. And you have to also understand their psychopathy. They are believing this is a battle of good versus evil. They're on
Mhm.
the side of good, you are on the side of evil. So anything they do is justified up to and including hurting the kid in some way. I've
Mhm.
had parents who have refused to transport children to extracurriculars and then said that it's because dad signed you up for an extracurricular you didn't really want to do. Or I've had parents who refused to return a comfort animal, a little
Mhm.
stuffy. This wouldn't have happened had you not filed for divorce. Then this child would have access to her favorite toy at all times. And
Mhm.
these behaviors are really harmful to the kids because now you're utilizing the kid as a weapon. Another thing that these parents tend to do is they really need to they want the child on their side. And while a lot of them will not speak negatively about the other parent directly, they will surround the child with anybody who will. So they
Mhm.
will align themselves with people who in psychology, they call it their flying monkeys.
Yeah.
Anybody who will align themselves or have aligned themselves with them so that those people can speak negatively about the other parent to the child.
Yeah.
And then they can turn around and say, I never
I
said
didn't
that.
do
I
it.
never did
Yeah.
that. Exactly. Those are two behaviors to really be on the lookout for. And it's very difficult to litigate because what are you supposed to do? Subpoena every single person this person's social group and say, has he let you say negative things about the child in front of the child? You obviously
Right.
can't do that. So again, best resolved outside of court.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we're very passionate at Amicable Divorce Network about making people understand that the amicable part is actually not the parties. It's the professionals, which means that if Nicole and I had a case together, we can have a normal conversation between us to work on what do these parties have resolved? What do we need to work on to get this done, as opposed to getting into the very expensive muck of he said, she said that the court just doesn't tolerate anyway, and really focusing on getting people move forward in a healthy manner. I think it's so interesting to put out about the flying monkeys as well, because a lot of people don't really realize that, but that is a way that the narcissist jerk, so to speak, insulates themselves by having other people do the bad bidding, so to speak, so that they're not the guilty one. It's, I can't control what my sister does or this person over here. And really they're pulling the strings the entire time. But yeah, again, how much money and time and psychological experts are you going to spend to sort that out? Will the court even courts have limited time as well. They're not going to have resources drained on this. It's good to focus on a situation. So what do you recommend for your clients who, whether it's a true narcissist or not, it's just a really jerky person, we don't know, but they come to you and they're like, I'm having these struggles. How should I handle my divorce?
One, don't show your hand. Don't show your hand early, because if you identify the thing that you want most in the divorce, be it the house, primary custody, access to a 401k so you can retire, alimony, something like that, whatever
Yeah.
it is, don't identify that early on, because that will be the thing that person becomes very entrenched on not giving you.
Right.
And then it becomes very difficult to get it down the line. I tell these people, like, hey, go ahead and tell your spouse, hey, I am really sorry that we have gotten to this point, and I wish that we hadn't. However, I have retained an attorney. I hope that you retain an attorney, hopefully through the Amicable Divorce Network, because that's where I got my attorney from. And we're just going to talk settlement through them. And do not tip your hand at all about what you want. That way, the attorney can negotiate and control the pace of settlement, and they can keep that thing that you want most in their back pocket, and they can slide it in for you. Okay, what does he really want? What does she really want? He is dead. He does not want to split this 401k. All right, you know what? I'll tell you what. I'll see if I can get my client to move on this 401k, but you're going to have to give up that house, I think.
Yeah.
And secretly, I know that my client really just wants the house.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things that is really useful for negotiating, because now that person doesn't know what to get entrenched in. Is the 401k, is it the house? They don't really know.
Yeah.
And you're able to guide the client in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I think I see a lot is what you touched on earlier, which is like the gaslighting, like the lies, and just they get so mired down in he or she said, I did this and I didn't, and it was actually this way and I was on time. For me, I recommend to my clients, keep a journal. Get that first of all out of your head so you're not spinning on it, and just write things down, take good notes, what happened at visitation exchange, these types of things, so you can actually reference it later for yourself to be like, that's not quite what happened, and I'm satisfied with my recollection of events and move forward. So because you can just get so drug into the back and forth and the nuances and the gray area, it's just maddening.
Yeah, another thing that I ask my clients to do is get a therapist.
Yeah,
Immediately
absolutely.
get a therapist. You will spend a lot more money and get a lot less effective therapy from me than you will from somebody who's actually licensed to help you navigate this process.
Yeah.
I can help you navigate the legal process. Another thing that I really need to caution anybody listening to this about, even though we're talking about narcissism and we are very experienced in dealing with that, we are not trained mental health professionals.
Yes.
A trained mental health professional can actually help you through this. And I tell clients sometimes too, if you want, go ahead and sign a release for me to talk to your therapist, and I will give them kind of the roadmap of what I see this divorce looking like, what I see the hurdles being, so that I can give them the legal landscape and they can help you navigate that as well. That saves you a lot of money and a lot of heartache down the line.
Absolutely. That's just really great advice. Another thing I learned in training recently was that they were saying definitely the person you would consider to be the victim of the situation should get mental health therapy, but often they get very focused on the person they think is a narcissist. I need to get them in therapy. They need to understand, they need to change. And I'm always telling clients, like, abandon that issue, because what we need to focus on is they will never change. and how we can help you get the tools to deal with this person the way that they are as a co-parent, whatever it is the situation is going to be, but to abandon this issue, that something will fix them.
Yeah, that is solid advice. I'm going to write that one down because that's really good advice as well.
Yeah, and the kids as well. I explain it to my clients like this person is like a rock in a stream and they're not going to move. But we need to give you the tools to move around them like water so that you can just keep flowing with your life. They're there. And the same with the children. I think you're talking about these tender ages, any ages as well. If you're dealing with this situation, even college age children, put them in counseling and therapy as well to vest them with the tools to be healthy with this situation and just to deal with the divorce. It's hard on children of any age, but to not focus on that the other person's going to get fixed somehow, because that's not really a choice that we have.
Yeah.
And people hearing this, they might be like, oh my gosh, is this whole situation just hopeless because I have this person on the other side? I'm sure we hear that a lot. What would you say to that question?
It depends on what their goals are, right? If their goal is to change the other person, yes, that is an uphill battle you are never going to win.
Our magic wands are broken as well.
And something else I tell people too, courts do not, cannot, will not make somebody else a better parent. If you are struggling with co-parenting, there are tools that courts can give you. They can order co-parenting counseling. They can order your child to attend therapy, split the cost, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, if you're dealing with this narcissistic spouse and you accept that they're not going to change, it really helps you refocus on how do I deal with my children now? How do I go ahead and get them the support they need so that they can learn proper boundaries? They can learn when they're being gaslit by their parent. And you don't want to ever come out to the kid and say, hey, by the way, little Tommy, I think your dad was gaslighting you, or I think your mom may have been lying to you, obviously, but the children will learn naturally how to develop those boundaries so long as they have a healthy parent who is showing them how to do that.
Yeah. And a tool that I just love in these situations is our Family Wizard, which is a parenting app for anybody who doesn't know that. Several key components of the features that they have that I don't find in other parenting apps that are important here. One is the parties can communicate within the app, and it's great to have that boundary, like you were talking about, like we are only going to talk on this app so that all of the communication is in one spot. But it also does read receipts. Mom sent the message or put the calendar item on at 3 o'clock on March 1st, and then it shows when the other parent read it. So it really cuts down on some of this. You told me too late and different things. It also has geo check-in. So if somebody's always accused of being late or not at a particular point, they can drop a pin. It goes in the app. So some of this back and forth, we have a technology solve for, which is just really great. And parents should consider that as opposed to some of the other options, because this one has some of the almost narcissistic control devices built into it. I think what I see often is that the person also who is the victim in the situation, they do a lot of research before they make that next step because they want to make sure that they are making the correct step to have success in this situation. So if somebody's listening to this and they're in like the planning research phases, what would you tell them?
Yeah, one, go ahead and just schedule that consultation. It is the consultations are not very expensive with attorneys. A lot of attorneys will just get on the phone with you if you call a firm just for a couple of minutes. May not give you a full long hour consultation, but just bounce some ideas off of them. The other thing too is don't go too far down the my spouse is a narcissist hole.
Yeah.
Sometimes your spouse is just a jerk.
Yeah.
Sometimes you and your spouse just don't get along and maybe you're a jerk.
Yeah.
You don't know. So don't try to diagnose them via Google. Just try to figure out what is it that I want out of this relationship? Do I want to stay in it or do I want to get out of it? Okay, once you've made that decision, then you move on to, okay, what is it that I need from this divorce? And what is it that I want from this divorce? I need a amount of support for X amount of time. I cannot live without that. But I want this wish list of things. Go ahead and make yourself that list. Don't focus so much on the psychology of it because unless you are an actual mental health professional, and even mental health professionals should be wary of diagnosing their spouses, you're probably misdiagnosing them. They may just be a jerk, like you said. And this idea, because narcissism is so prevalent right now, it's such a hot topic, is that anyone who's going through a divorce, they're going through a narcissistic divorce. That's not the case. It is a truly special, unique beast.
Yeah. But I think people read those behaviors online and they ring true with them. And so they latch on to this label. But what I want people to understand is you may actually be one of the people who are dealing with that. That could be entirely true or not. But the way that this is treated professionally for a divorce is the same. And so we have the tools to say, this person isn't the best to you. They're treating you like a jerk. Here's some tips. Here's how we're going to handle this situation. So abandon focusing on that label. It's not as legally important, perhaps, as people might think that it is. If people are listening to this and they're like, Nicole is speaking my language, I want to reach out to her and work with her, what is the best way for them to reach you?
You absolutely should call my firm. One, you're going to get Alicia, who has a much better phone voice than I do. She is wonderful, and she will put you on my calendar to talk. Our firm's phone number is 770-628-7147. And yeah, you can reach me also via our website and all that other information, but calling the firm directly will get you Alicia, and she's got the key to my calendar.
That's the person you need right there. And if you're listening to this and you're driving or you want to reflect back later, all of Nicole's information is going to be in the show notes. In addition, you can always head over to amicableddivorcenetwork.com, click Georgia, and you will see her pull up as one of our professionals, and you can reach out to her directly on the website. Nicole, thank you so much for your passion for helping people, for being one of our vetted professionals, and for this great conversation today.
Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed this, and thank you for talking about something that's so near and dear to my heart. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll talk soon. Thank you to everybody for listening. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss any Amicable Divorce Network content or tips.